It was a Wednesday night when everything changed. I'll never forget it, the moment that planted the seed of doubt. Erica had just come back from a business trip. At least, that's what she told me. The minute she stepped through the door, I noticed something off. She wasn't the same. Her smile wasn't the same. Her eyes, those eyes that had always looked at me like I was the only man in the room, seemed distracted, almost distant. She brushed it off when I asked if everything was okay. "I'm just tired," she said, kicking off her heels and tossing her bag on the couch like she didn't even care where it landed. But then I saw the phone. She left it on the counter. She had never done that before. Her phone was always glued to her hand, but tonight it sat there as though she was trying to distance herself from it. I should have let it go, but I couldn't. Something about the way she acted, something about the way she was avoiding me, set off every alarm in my head. So I picked up her phone just to check the time. I didn't expect to find anything. I wasn't that kind of guy. I trusted my wife. But when that phone lit up with a text from a number I didn't recognize, I knew things weren't as simple as they seemed. The message was short but telling. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll make sure she doesn't find out." That's when the world shifted. My stomach dropped, and I felt my blood pressure spike. I tried to stay calm, but I could already feel the anger bubbling up inside me. Who the hell was this person? Why was Erica texting them like this? And more importantly, why the hell was she acting like everything was normal when I had the proof right in front of me? I didn't wait for an explanation. I marched straight to her, phone in hand. She saw the look in my eyes, the tightness in my jaw, and for the first time in years, I could tell she was scared. Her face went pale. "You want to explain this?" I said, my voice low, steady but cutting. Erica froze. She tried to laugh it off, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "It's nothing, Jack," she said, but I could hear the lie in her voice. "It's just a colleague. You're overreacting." But something about her demeanor, the way she fidgeted with her hands, how she avoided making eye contact, told me everything I needed to know. I was done pretending. I'm Jack Daniels. I've always prided myself on being a straight shooter, someone who sees the world for what it is. I spent 30 years working as a mechanical engineer, solving problems and fixing things that most people wouldn't have the patience for. That's what I did. I liked order. I liked knowing how things worked from machines to people. But after retirement, I didn't want to just sit around. I stayed active, got involved in local projects, spent time with the family. My world was routine, simple, and for the most part, predictable. And then there was Erica. We'd been together for 15 years, married for 12. She was my rock, or at least that's what I thought. We had a comfortable life, good friends, family dinners every Sunday, weekends by the lake. But somewhere along the way, things shifted. I didn't notice it right away, but now looking back, the signs were there all along. I was too busy in my own little world to pay attention. And now, here I was, a man who had been blindsided, standing in his own kitchen, holding a phone with a message that could shatter everything. My mind was racing. It wasn't just about this one message. It wasn't just about the phone. It was about her. About everything. Who was she really? Was the woman I'd spent the last decade with someone I could trust? Or had I been a fool, blinded by my own comfort? I didn't know how far this betrayal went, but I was about to find out. I wasn't going to let this go. I wasn't going to just sit back and act like nothing was wrong. Erica would explain herself, and I was going to make sure of it. In the following weeks, I kept a close eye on Erica. She didn't know it, but I was paying attention to every little thing. It wasn't like me to be a snoop, but this wasn't normal. The more I watched, the more I saw the cracks in the facade. First, it was the late nights. She had always been the first to leave work and the last to come home, but now there was this sudden need to stay late for work meetings that I never seemed to get invited to. Erica had always kept me in the loop about her work. It was something we both took pride in. But these new late nights were different. She started coming home later, looking tired, but not in the way she used to. She looked off. Then it was the weekends. She'd always been excited about our family trips, our get-togethers, our routine. But suddenly, every weekend, Erica was busy or too tired to join in. At first, I thought it was just a phase, maybe stress from work or her personal hobby she was developing. But after that night with the phone, after seeing that message, I knew something was wrong. And the changes weren't just in her behavior. She started dressing differently, more provocatively. Not that she'd ever been modest, but these new outfits, tight dresses, heavy makeup, the type of clothes she used to wear when we went out to fancy events, were a far cry from the jeans and shirts she used to wear on a Sunday afternoon. It was like she was trying to be someone else. I confronted her again. "Who the hell is Mark?" I asked, not even bothering to soften the words. "And why the hell are you texting him like that?" Erica's face drained of color. She tried to explain, but it was too late. I already knew. She was caught. The days following that confrontation were a blur of tension and silence. Erica's attempts to downplay everything only made things worse. She kept repeating that it was nothing, that I was overreacting, that I was reading too much into it. But the evidence kept piling up. Every day, there was something new, another small piece of the puzzle falling into place. And the picture that emerged was not one I liked. The first big crack came a few days after I had confronted her about the text. Erica had insisted that the message was a misunderstanding, that it was a joke between co-workers. "You know how Mark is," she said, her voice tight with nervousness. "We've been friends for years. He was just messing around." But something in the way she said it didn't sit right with me. She was too defensive, too quick to dismiss it, and I wasn't about to let it go that easily. I spent the next few days keeping an eye on her, watching her every move. She had no idea I was doing it, but I knew I had to be smart about how I handled this. I wasn't going to let her lie to me anymore. I had started paying attention to her phone again. This time, I didn't wait for it to be left unattended. I made sure to check it whenever I got the chance, and what I found next confirmed my suspicions. Erica's phone wasn't just full of messages from Mark, though that was bad enough. There were calls. Missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. It wasn't just one or two. There were dozens of them. There were also messages that were, to put it mildly, more than friendly. Some of them were vague, but others were explicit. One message from Mark, sent late on a Friday night, read, "I'll be there at 10. Don't worry. She'll be out of the house. I'll make sure everything goes smoothly. We can't keep pretending forever." I stared at the screen, rage rising in my chest. How could she do this to me? For all these years, I had been loyal. I had trusted her completely. But now, I had proof. The evidence wasn't some abstract suspicion anymore. It was in black and white, right in front of my eyes. I couldn't sit on this any longer. I had to confront her, and I had to do it in a way that would show her I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I waited for Erica to come home that evening. I was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that made her nervous. When she walked through the door, I didn't even look up from the couch. I just held her phone in my hand and waited. She noticed immediately. Her face shifted. She knew what was coming. "Jack," she said, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the tremor in her voice. "What's going on?" I didn't answer. I tossed the phone onto the table in front of her. The screen lit up, the latest message from Mark glaring back at us both. I didn't need to say a word. The words were already there. She paled. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She was caught. "I knew it, Erica. I knew something was off," I said, my voice low but full of anger. "I've been watching. I've been paying attention. You thought I wouldn't notice, didn't you?" "Jack, it's not what you think," she stammered, her eyes darting around as if she were looking for an escape. But there was no way out. "Not this time. I never meant for you to find out like this. I wasn't having it. Cut the crap. Who's Mark, Erica? And why are you sleeping with him behind my back?" She flinched at the accusation, but her eyes told the truth before her mouth could. She opened her mouth to speak, but it was clear she was scrambling. She had no good explanation, no easy way to deflect. I didn't mean for things to get this far," she finally muttered, her voice breaking. "It just happened. Don't give me that," I snapped, standing up from the couch. "You planned this. Don't you dare say this was some accident. You've been sneaking around behind my back for months, and now it's all falling apart." Her face crumpled. "Please, Jack, don't do this." The desperation in her voice almost made me hesitate, but I couldn't. Not after everything. Not after she lied to my face so many times. "No, Erica, you don't get to decide how this goes anymore." She started to cry. "I never wanted to hurt you. It was just easier." I cut her off. "Easier? You think I don't know what that means? You got comfortable, didn't you? You thought I wouldn't notice. Thought I wouldn't care." Her tears didn't sway me anymore. I wasn't the man who would listen to hollow apologies. I was the man who knew the truth now. I had a choice to make, and I wasn't going to waste time pretending I didn't have options. In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about what Erica had said. It was just easier. That line haunted me, not because of the words themselves, but because of what it revealed about her character. She had chosen to betray me, to take the easy way out. She didn't care about the life we built. She didn't care about the promises we made to each other. She cared about herself, and that was something I couldn't ignore. I couldn't just walk away from this. This wasn't just an affair. It was a betrayal on a deeper level. The foundation of our entire marriage had been built on trust, and Erica had shattered it. I needed to figure out what came next. Divorce wasn't enough. It wasn't just about ending the marriage. It was about making sure she understood the gravity of her actions. She couldn't get away with this. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I also knew that if I didn't do something now, if I let her slip away without facing the consequences of what she had done, I would be letting myself down. I wasn't going to let her walk away scot-free. The night Erica confessed was the beginning of a long road. I wasn't the kind of man to rush into decisions, especially not when my emotions were running high. But one thing was clear. I had been wronged, and I wasn't going to let this slide. She had asked for forgiveness, begged me to give her another chance. And that was the point where I realized the extent of her manipulation. As I watched her sit there, trying to salvage the wreckage of our marriage, it dawned on me that this wasn't just about a slip-up. This was about a calculated, deliberate betrayal. She had chosen this. She had chosen him, whoever he was, over everything we had built together. I needed to think. I needed to act. But I also needed to make sure that Erica understood the consequences of her actions. If I just let her go without retribution, I would be letting myself down. She had crossed the line, and now it was time to set things right. In the days that followed, I kept my distance from Erica. I told her that I needed space, that I needed to think. I wasn't rude, no, I was cold, detached. I watched her desperately try to make things better. She cooked dinner every night, tried to kiss me, brought me gifts, things we had never needed in the past. She'd even suggested couples therapy, claiming that we could work through it. But none of that mattered. I wasn't interested in fixing things anymore. I was interested in making sure she knew just how much she had ruined. I'd spent a few days going over every detail of our life together, making sure I had all my ducks in a row. Erica didn't deserve a peaceful exit. I had worked hard for everything we had, the house, the vacations, the family gatherings. It had all been built on a foundation of mutual trust, and she had torn that down. So, now it was time to level the playing field. I didn't want to make this easy on her. I wanted her to understand what it felt like to lose everything. Step one of my plan: exposing her affair. I had learned enough in the days following the confrontation to make sure that her little affair would see the light of day. It wasn't just about me. It was about everyone who had ever trusted her. She had lied to her friends, lied to her family, and now I was going to make sure they all knew the truth. I couldn't just let her slink off into the shadows, pretending everything was fine. So I started with her parents. They had always liked me. They respected me. So when I called her mother, I didn't hold back. I told her everything about the texts, the late nights, the hotel receipts I'd found, and the countless lies. Her mother was shocked, speechless even, but I didn't care. I wasn't looking for sympathy. I was looking for the truth to be out in the open. Let her family know what kind of woman they had been supporting all these years. Her mother had always been a strong presence in our lives, but I knew Erica wasn't going to expect this. I knew she hadn't told her family about the affair. Erica liked to keep her image pristine, but now it was time for that mask to slip. By the time I got off the phone, I could hear Erica crying in the other room. Her mother had already called her. I didn't care. The damage was done. The next part of my plan was one that would hit Erica where it hurt the most: her finances. We had built a life together, yes, but I had always kept my business dealings separate from our personal finances. Over the years, I had accumulated a sizable savings and a couple of investments that Erica had no clue about. I didn't share everything with her, mainly because I knew how irresponsible she could be with money. When I married Erica, I had made the decision to keep certain things separate. I had no intention of giving her full access to everything I had worked for, and now that she had shown her true colors, I knew I had to protect myself. I started by taking a detailed look at our shared bank accounts. I transferred everything I could into separate accounts in my name only. I knew it was going to be a headache in the long run, but I didn't care. Erica wasn't going to walk away from this with a penny of what I had built. I also began looking at the property we owned together. There was a house, a few investments, and some assets that I knew she wouldn't want to part with. I made sure to consult with my lawyer and began the paperwork for a divorce. No messy battles in court. I had my strategy lined up, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into giving her more than she deserved. I was calculating, cold, and I didn't feel a shred of remorse. Erica had already made her choice. She had chosen him over me, over us, and now it was my turn to make the difficult decisions. Now came the part that I enjoyed the most. I knew I had to isolate Erica socially. It wasn't enough to just hit her where it hurt, financially, or expose her to her family. I wanted to make sure she lost every ounce of her support system. I had always been careful with the way I interacted with our mutual friends, but now it was time to pull the rug out from under her. I started with her close friends, the ones who were always by her side, the ones who had helped her cover up her lies over the years. I called a few of them up and told them everything. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't care if they believed me or not. I was done holding back. It was time for her to feel the full weight of what she had done. But I didn't stop there. I made sure to talk to people at her workplace, too. Erica had always prided herself on being the office queen, the one everyone turned to for advice. I made sure her supervisor knew about her affair. I didn't care about the details. I just needed them to know the kind of woman they had working for them. By the time the dust settled, Erica had no one left to turn to. Her colleagues had stopped speaking to her. Her friends had distanced themselves. And her family? They were disgusted by her actions. I watched from the sidelines, detached but satisfied. She had built this life of lies, and now it was crumbling around her. I didn't file for divorce immediately. I wanted Erica to feel the full weight of her actions first. She had spent the last few weeks begging me for another chance, apologizing, crying, asking if we could go to counseling. She even tried to convince me that the affair was a one-time mistake, that she was confused, that she was lost. But I wasn't confused. I wasn't lost. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to manipulate me into forgiving her, and I wasn't buying it. So I waited, and then I made my move. I filed for divorce, and I made it clear that I wasn't going to make it easy on her. I wanted everything in writing. I wanted the custody of the dog, the house, everything that was rightfully mine. Erica could walk away with whatever she could carry, but I wasn't going to make her exit as easy as she'd hoped. It had been weeks since I filed the divorce papers. I was already planning my future, sorting out my finances, and mentally preparing myself for life after Erica. The affair had taken its toll, but I was done. Done with the lies, the manipulation, and the complete lack of respect for the vows we'd shared. Erica, however, didn't see it that way. She still thought she could fix things, that she could talk her way out of it, and perhaps regain some semblance of control. She was wrong. Then one evening, everything changed. The phone rang at exactly 8:43 p.m. The number on the caller ID wasn't one I recognized, but for some reason, I answered it. Maybe it was the time of night, or maybe there was something deep inside me that just knew this was the moment when everything would take another turn. Jack. The voice on the other end was familiar, but it took me a second to place it. It's Mark. I froze. Mark, of course. The man who had been involved with my wife. The man who thought he could just waltz into my life and steal everything I had worked for. He sounded different, more serious than the last time we spoke. But the bitterness in his voice was unmistakable. Mark, I've had enough of this, I said, cutting him off before he could speak any further. You've ruined enough of my life. I don't want to talk to you. Get out of my life. You can have Erica. I'm done. Hold on, Jack. This isn't what you think, Mark said, his voice strained. I'm not calling to apologize. I'm calling because I think you need to know something bigger than just what you've been dealing with. The way he said it made my stomach twist. I was done with Erica, done with him, done with everything. But the tone in his voice, desperate, almost, told me there was more to this story than I had realized. So I listened, and what he told me next shattered everything I thought I knew. You think she's just been sleeping with me? Jack, she's been with other men. A lot of them. And it goes back much further than you realize. I didn't even know she was married when we started this thing. But once I found out, I started digging. You're not the only one she's been lying to. My mind went blank. I heard the words, but they didn't make sense. Erica, my wife, had been seeing other men? More than one? The rage I'd felt before intensified, twisting in my gut, but a part of me stayed still. What did Mark mean? How many others? I had to know. She's been using you both, Jack, Mark continued. I'm not the only one. You're not the only one she's been juggling. She's been seeing men from her work, friends from the gym. Hell, even some of your old buddies. She's been playing this game for years, hiding it in plain sight. I couldn't wrap my head around it. It was one thing for her to cheat with him, but with so many others? How did I miss this? The betrayal wasn't just an affair anymore. It was a long-standing deception. Erica had built her entire life around lying to me, hiding behind her perfect image. But why tell me this now? I demanded. What do you want, Mark? I'm not looking for anything, Jack. But I think you should know, he said, his voice tinged with something else now. Regret? She was using me to cover up some of the other guys, but she's also been making sure no one knows the truth. Her whole life is a facade, man. She's been playing all of us. That was it. The gloves were off. This was no longer about just a failed marriage. This was about betrayal on a scale I couldn't have imagined. It wasn't just one affair. It was years of lies, manipulation, and deceit. It wasn't enough to just divorce her anymore. I was going to make sure Erica understood the price of all her games. I was no longer interested in moving on quietly. It was no longer about healing. It was about making sure Erica paid for everything she had done. She thought she could play me for a fool, but she had underestimated me. I wasn't the naive man who had married her. I was someone who had been awakened to the truth, and I was going to make sure everyone knew just who Erica truly was. I didn't need to be a saint about this. No, I was going to make her life a living hell, but I wasn't going to leave it to just social media posts and gossip. No, I would strike where it would hurt the most, her career. Erica had built her career on being the perfect image of professionalism, of being the perfect wife, the perfect friend, and the perfect coworker. She loved the power, the respect, the attention she got from others. But all of it was built on lies. And I wasn't going to let it stand. I reached out to a few colleagues of hers, some people I knew personally and some I had just heard of through the grapevine. With each conversation, I dropped a little more information. I didn't give them everything at once, just enough to get them to question her, just enough to make them see that Erica wasn't the person they thought she was. Slowly, people began to shift their views. It wasn't immediate, but the seeds I planted began to grow. Her social media was the next battleground. Erica had carefully crafted a life that screamed perfect family, devoted wife, and successful woman. But now, it was my turn to take that image apart. I started sending anonymous messages to various people who followed her, revealing snippets of our life together. The receipts, the late-night texts, the hotel stays I had uncovered. I didn't give away everything at once. No, I kept some of the most shocking details hidden for now. But soon, her flawless public image began to crumble. And then, there was the final nail in the coffin. As I watched Erica's world start to unravel, I got a call that changed everything. It wasn't Mark this time. It was someone else. Someone I hadn't expected to hear from, and certainly not like this. The voice on the other end of the line was my own brother. Jack, we need to talk, he said, his voice shaky. About what? I asked, already suspicious. You need to listen carefully. I don't know how to tell you this, but I just found something I think you need to know. His words were rushed, urgent. What is it, Mike? Erica, she's not who you think she is, Mike began, his voice low. I've been doing some digging, and I found something in her bank account, a big transaction, not from a shop or a hotel. It was from a private account, one I know she doesn't have. I sat up, my heart pounding. What was he talking about? I was no stranger to Erica's finances. We'd always been transparent about money, about everything. But now this? I checked it out, Jack. She's been transferring money into a private account under a false name. A name I've never heard of before, Mike said, his voice now filled with disbelief. There's more to this whole thing than just cheating. I think Erica's been involved in something much bigger, Jack. I didn't know what to think. Erica, a private account? What the hell had she been up to? Mike continued. I found the account linked to a company. Not some little side hustle, but a full-fledged operation. And guess what? The company is registered to one of her friends. The same guy she's been spending so much time with lately. My mind raced. What kind of game had Erica been playing? This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was about something far darker. I had already been living with the lie of her affair, but now it seemed like the deception went much deeper. The divorce was no longer just about breaking up a marriage. It had transformed into a battle of retribution. I was done with Erica, but I wasn't about to let her leave unscathed. We met at the lawyer's office once again, but this time the stakes were higher. The evidence I had uncovered, the financial transactions, the hidden accounts, it was all in front of her now. I didn't care if she begged. I didn't care if she cried. She was going to pay. Erica tried to pull the same old act. The sorrow, the pleas for reconciliation, the "I've made a terrible mistake" routine. But it wasn't going to work this time. I'd seen through her charades. She was nothing more than a skilled manipulator who had thought she could keep getting away with everything. You've really gone too far, Erica, I said, my voice cold and firm. I don't just want a divorce. I'm going to make sure you lose everything. Your career, your reputation, your friends, they're all going to see you for what you truly are. By the end of that meeting, Erica had nothing left. Her life was in ruins. The divorce was finalized, and Erica walked away with nothing more than the weight of her own lies and the shattered remains of the life she had built. After weeks of sleepless nights, endless discussions with my lawyer, and hours spent reflecting on everything that had transpired, I was ready to take the next step. Erica had crossed a line that left me no choice but to act. I had to show her what it meant to destroy someone's life, to ruin someone's trust. She didn't deserve to walk away unscathed from what she had done to me. I lived my life trying to be a good man. I didn't cheat on her. I never lied to her. And when I found out about her betrayal, I had initially been crushed. But the truth of the matter was that it only made me stronger. Erica thought she could play the victim, but in reality, she was the perpetrator, and it was time for the world to see that. My first move was simple. I needed to make sure her reputation would never be the same again. For years, Erica had prided herself on her perfect image. She was the model wife, the successful career woman, and the devoted mother. But that image was built on lies. And now it was time to tear it down. I had all the evidence I needed. The receipts from hotels I never stayed at. The messages between her and Mark, the gym buddy, and a dozen others. The bank records showing her secret account. But most importantly, I had a small, tight-knit circle of friends, people I could trust who were already aware of what Erica had done. These were people who could turn the tide in ways that Erica never saw coming. I began by reaching out to some of her closest colleagues at work, the ones who admired her, who looked up to her as a leader in the company, the ones who had no idea what was really going on. I didn't spill everything at once, but I slowly began to plant seeds of doubt. Each conversation with one of her coworkers was carefully crafted, revealing small, discrete pieces of information. They weren't going to hear everything at once, but I made sure to speak of things that made them question her character. Her late-night calls, the lavish dinner she'd been having at upscale restaurants with mysterious men, the hotel stays that didn't make sense. It didn't take long before a few of them started to catch on. I had them where I wanted them. All I needed now was for them to start asking the right questions. Slowly, Erica's carefully crafted facade began to crack. The whispers had started. Her image was starting to crumble, and she had no idea I was behind it. After a couple of weeks, things were starting to unravel for Erica. Her co-workers were starting to treat her with suspicion. Her social circle was shifting, and while she didn't know exactly why, she could feel it. What Erica didn't realize was that I wasn't done yet. I was only getting started. The next phase was delicate, the social media aspect. Erica, like so many people these days, had built a public persona online. Pictures of family vacations, posts about her perfect life, motivational quotes about love and loyalty. All of it was a lie. And now it was time to expose her for what she really was. I started by anonymously sending a few key people in her social circle some of the most damning pieces of evidence I had. Message, photo, receipt. I didn't go straight to social media with it. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I chose to leak the details privately. Friends, acquaintances, even distant family members. I wanted Erica's world to slowly start falling apart. I wanted her to feel the walls closing in. And slowly it worked. People started questioning her. They started unfollowing her. Or worse, they began posting things on her pictures, leaving comments that hinted at what they knew. It wasn't overt, but it was there. People started piecing things together, and she couldn't hide it anymore. The power of social media was immense. When Erica posted a picture of herself on a vacation we had taken years ago, one that had once been filled with so many happy memories, I made sure a few well-placed comments from old acquaintances began to surface. Comments like, "Funny, I thought you were with someone else the last time you were in that area." Or, "How's that relationship with Mark going? Hope it's working out better than it did with Jack." I wasn't even the one making those comments. I never had to be. The more people I involved, the more Erica's image started to crumble. People began to piece things together. Her carefully curated life was being slowly dismantled. Now that her social life was beginning to crack, I moved to her work life. Erica had always been a star employee at her company. She had climbed the ranks over the years, all while keeping up the appearance of being the perfect wife, mother, and professional. But now, I knew I had to go after her job. I couldn't just ruin her image. I had to make sure she lost everything. I reached out to a few of her colleagues, people who had always admired Erica's professionalism. I had been collecting stories and small pieces of information for weeks. Some of these people were her friends. Others barely knew her, but had heard of her accomplishments. I dropped subtle hints about her extramarital activities. It wasn't just about telling them the truth. It was about making them question the integrity of someone they had once trusted. I didn't need to show them every piece of evidence right away. No, I let the story unfold in whispers. Then came the tipping point. One of her colleagues, a man who had always admired Erica's drive and ambition, decided to confront her. He was a high-ranking manager at her company and had the ear of the CEO. He called her into his office one afternoon and, without warning, laid out everything I had hinted at. The hotel receipts, the unexplained bank transactions, the phone calls late at night, the people who had been following her on social media. Erica couldn't lie her way out of this one. The proof was overwhelming. It was all in black and white. That same night, the rumors at her office began to spread like wildfire. By the time Erica got home, she had already lost most of her credibility at work. There were whispers of investigations being started. People were starting to question whether she was the person they thought she was. Was she really the trustworthy, hard-working woman who had built her career through dedication and loyalty? Or was she just another opportunistic liar, using her charm and manipulation to climb the corporate ladder? Erica came home that night looking pale, exhausted, and angry. She had heard the rumors. She knew what was happening, but she didn't understand how. I could see it in her eyes. She was trying to stay composed, trying to control her emotions. But she knew. She knew her life was falling apart, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She tried to play the victim, of course. She was good at that. Her first words when she walked through the door were almost predictable. "What did you do, Jack? Why are people talking about me like that? Why is my career falling apart?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. The truth was out there now, and no amount of denial would save her. When she saw me sitting calmly at the table, she realized that this time, there was no way out. Her phone rang, and she glanced at it nervously, checking the name on the screen. It was one of her colleagues. A quick flash of panic crossed her face before she answered. She stepped out of the room, trying to distance herself from me, but I could hear the conversation. "Jack knows everything," she said into the phone. "I can't fix this. I don't know how to fix this. It's falling apart." That was the moment it hit me. Erica had finally realized she couldn't control the narrative anymore. The walls were closing in, and there was no escape. The truth was out. And for the first time, I felt a sense of satisfaction, not in vengeance, but in justice. She thought she had won. She thought she could control everything. But now, everything she had built on lies was crumbling. Erica was finally facing the consequences of her betrayal. The night Erica came home after the confrontation at her office, things took an unexpected turn. She knew, deep down, that the life she had carefully constructed was crumbling. But she was too proud, too stubborn, to admit that she was facing the consequences of her actions. Instead of approaching me with any sense of humility or remorse, she chose to put up a front, pretending everything was just fine. "I'm not going to let this affect me," she told me as she sat across from me at the dinner table, trying to act as though she was unaffected by the bombshell that had just dropped. "I'll fix this. I always fix things." Her voice was shaky, and I could see the cracks in her confident facade. But I wasn't in the mood for her games anymore. Erica had betrayed me in the most devastating way possible. And for the first time in years, I felt a fire inside me, a rage that I couldn't suppress. The quiet, calm man I had been was gone. What she had done wasn't just cheating. It was a betrayal of the worst kind, a betrayal of the very foundation of everything I had worked for in this life. But now, it was my turn to take control. I had to make sure she felt every inch of the destruction she had caused. She had already lost her career, and now it was time to break down the rest of her world. The first part of my plan was simple. I had to go public with her lies. Everyone in her life needed to know the truth. And what better way to do that than at the one event she had been working so hard to protect? It was a weekend gala that Erica had been organizing for the past few months. A huge event for the company. A black tie affair that had always been the highlight of her professional year. She had spent weeks putting everything together, and it was meant to be her crowning achievement. The problem was, she had no idea that I had already planned for her grand finale to be her downfall. I waited until the night of the event. Erica was at the venue, busy managing every last detail. She had no clue what was coming. I had already planted a few key pieces of evidence with a few colleagues, people who, until then, had been loyal to her, people who had admired her. And now, they were all getting the truth, piece by piece. I made my way to the venue later that evening, calm and collected, with my mind focused on the one thing that mattered. The truth would come out. I had arranged for several individuals to gather, and as the evening unfolded, I made sure that everything came together perfectly. Just before the event's highlight speech, I sent a carefully worded text to several attendees. I had everyone's attention. It read, "Did Erica really tell you about all those nights spent in hotel rooms with her friend Mark? It's strange how she's been hiding so much from you all, isn't it?" The messages went out. It wasn't a direct attack on her. I wanted to make people question, to make them wonder. But the ripple effect was immediate. As the message spread throughout the crowd, whispers began to circulate. Slowly, people began checking their phones, reading the messages, and suddenly, Erica's pristine image was no more. The attention from her co-workers shifted from admiration to confusion, then to suspicion. Erica began to notice the change. I watched as her smile faltered and her confidence began to crack. Her perfect world was crumbling, and I wasn't about to stop. By the time Erica stood up to give her speech, I knew she was completely rattled. Her hands were shaking as she held the microphone. She tried to speak, but her words faltered. For a moment, I saw the woman I used to know, the one who was confident, poised, and in control. But that version of her had disappeared long ago, replaced by someone who had lied, cheated, and betrayed her own family. But I wasn't done yet. It was time for the final act of my revenge. I had already arranged for a video to be shown during the gala. I had access to footage from one of Erica's business trips, the one where she had been meeting with Mark at a luxury hotel. It was a clip of them leaving the hotel together, laughing and sharing an intimate moment. The video showed everything. Her laughter, the way she held on to him as they walked out of the lobby, the clear chemistry between them. I had made sure the video would be projected onto the giant screen at the gala. Erica had no idea what was coming. As the clip played, I watched her face drain of color. Her eyes widened as she saw herself, caught red-handed, engaging in the kind of betrayal that had shattered everything. She looked around the room, desperately trying to make eye contact with someone, anyone. But it was too late. The damage was done. Her colleagues stood there frozen in shock. Some looked away. Others stared at the screen in disbelief. But all of them now knew the truth. And Erica? She looked like she had been struck by a lightning bolt. There was nothing she could do. The room fell silent as the video ended. I watched as Erica's hands trembled, and she seemed to collapse inwardly. She had tried to maintain control, to salvage some semblance of her image, but now it was gone. It was the first time I'd seen her truly vulnerable. It was like watching her world crumble into dust. Erica ran out of the room, her face flushed with a mixture of anger and humiliation. People followed her, murmuring, and soon the hotel was buzzing with disbelief. I stayed back, knowing the worst was yet to come. But I had made sure my message was heard. I watched from a distance as she went into damage control mode. She tried to explain herself, to spin a story, but it was all too late. Her colleagues were already turning their backs. Her closest friends, the ones she had thought she could trust, were now turning against her. No one was on her side, not after what they had seen. It wasn't just the social media fallout that was hard to manage. It was the whispered conversations at the gala, the uncomfortable silence in the elevator, the glances of judgment. Erica's name was now mud in her professional circle. I had taken away the one thing she valued more than anything, her reputation. She tried to contact me after the event. She called, texted, begged for forgiveness. But I didn't respond. There was no redemption for what she had done. She had crossed a line, and the person she thought she could manipulate had finally woken up. By now, Erica was losing everything. Her reputation, her job, and soon, her sense of control over her life. I had already consulted with my lawyer and finalized the details of our divorce. I was determined that she would not walk away from this unscathed. No financial settlement, no easy exit. She was going to pay for what she had done. But my revenge didn't end with the public reveal. The divorce proceedings were going to be brutal. I had made sure the legal paperwork would be stacked in my favor. I wasn't just taking the house or the savings. I was targeting every asset she had, including her retirement funds and her future earnings. I made sure that once she walked away from our marriage, there would be nothing left for her to rely on. She tried to contest the divorce, but every attempt was met with rejection. The evidence was overwhelming. The public humiliation, the betrayal, the secret life she had led, all of it made her position untenable. And as I watched her attempt to rebuild her life, I realized I had already won. Erica had no one left to turn to. Her world had collapsed, and now she would have to live with the consequences of her actions.